What's up, guys? Welcome back. We are back in the shop again for some more R7 love. The main thing we're doing today is we are going to go with more crash protection. The first thing we did was obviously these frame sliders, which they work out great in my opinion. And I stated when I installed them that I think these are really good for slow speed crashes. You think you're kind of new to riding and you have a better chance of maybe dropping your bike in a parking lot or putting it in a trailer to go somewhere. Those are the times you really consider you're probably potentially going to drop your motorcycle. And in my opinion, at really, really high speeds, if we drop and we hit this, what's going to happen is we're going to ruin our frame. And in my opinion, that is way worse than replacing a bunch of fairings. So we are going to install what I believe is better crash protection. What kind of really got me into the thought was the whole CRA thing. Like I'm really interested in maybe trying to get good enough on this motorcycle to race it in the CRA to see if I can get in that Twins Cup and do okay. So I started researching, what do I have to do to my bike to make it race ready, essentially. And the first thing I noticed right off the bat was I absolutely have to have some kind of engine case protection. So the most frequent thing I see out there on the track is these GBRacing. So I went with those. Of course, I'll link them down below if you're interested in doing this too. I think that when it comes to protection for the motorcycle, there's multiple times where I've seen people crash. Like for example, good old Bob Gardner, if you guys remember him, he hasn't been making videos lately, but hopefully sooner or later he'll get back into it. But either way, he had dropped his bike, he hit the curb, and it busted open the whole side of this case. The first thing we're going to start with is going to be this cover. So to do this, there's no need to remove the entire cover, but for sake and ease of use, and to get at this top one, I am going to remove this one piece of fairing. So we will get these top three off first. Don't lose these plastic washers that come on it. It'll keep from us scratching our paint. And if you're wondering why mine are black and yours are silver, go ahead and watch this video here. All right, for the last thing down here, you can actually put your hand under here and you can pop that little Phillips piece out, and that'll help us pull that out. From here, we can grab and simply pop that out. And the rest of this, we just gotta kind of weasel. We do have one more plastic screws back here that we need to get off, so I'm gonna do that the same way by pushing on the back, pulling it out, and there goes our front cover there. So you can see here we have 1 hole, 2 hole, 3, and 4. So we'll get this top one off here. There's one. And these actually are going to get replaced with longer bolts. And the reason for that is the large extension on the case cover. There's 2. There's 3. And there's our 4th. We'll get our 4 additional bolts. Now something worth noting is there is no Loctite on these. So it's up to you if you want to put Loctite on. I will not. I think they'll be fine without, and we will torque them to spec. We'll shove this first guy in here, being very, very careful not to strip these threads. That's why we're doing all this by hand. Make sure it's going in. I've got a bunch of threads on there with my hand, so I am good with it. And there's that 4th one. You always want to cross pattern things, and I'm not going to run these down very tight. All right, now we'll get them torqued. So our cover bolts are very, very low. They're only 8.9 foot-pounds. Very, very light. They don't need a lot. And they're good to go. Put our fairing back on. All the little additional plastic pieces that pop in place. Go ahead and get that guy back in there. And don't forget we have this guy in the back, so we have to pop this Phillips out. Do whatever weaseling necessary for it to pop in and then push it in. Once we line this guy up right here, we can push in and you'll feel that little rubber grommet down there sinking in. Pull this guy back out. Make sure everything's lined up. Put it in, push it in. Last bolt, just make sure it's all nice and lined up and going in without stripping. And boom, we've got some protection on the side. Let's get over and do the other side real quick. All right, moving over to the clutch side, you can tell we're gonna have to do the same thing. We're gonna have to remove this because we will be kind of putting these bolts just behind the fairings here. So same thing, top 3 bolts here. Get these guys out. We have 4mm back here. Grab a hold of some pick. And technically those are Phillips, and you can do a light little kind of turn on them. I always found that to be more of a pain in the ass than just getting a pick in here and popping it up like so, and then just popping it out entirely. Almost forgot one. Another 4mm down here. Good. So hopefully you can see this guy back here on the video. I'm just gonna pop it up a little bit like that, get the Phillips out, and then use the pick to completely remove it. And we can just pop it off like so. I'm just gonna kind of pull this fairing back a little bit. It's still kind of tight. It's definitely a little tight back here, but we can get it out. Here's the other one, which would be this one here. This one here. And just as the other kit, we get another set of bolts because they are slightly longer. That cover is gonna stick off just a little bit more than the stock. Always worth saving all of these old bolts. Cover fits very nicely. And we'll do all this by hand. Just make sure we get some threads going. And I wouldn't run any of them down yet. You just wanna make sure they're going. They're going in there very easily, which is nice. So that guy is going to be a little hard to do. Pull that fairing back just enough. If you want to, you can loosen a lot of this up and get this fairing to come out as well. I'm going to run this one all the way down by hand so there's minimal effort to do to torque it. Remember that torque spec is so low. Just get them run down. Same 8.9 foot-pounds. Obviously almost, literally almost nothing. But you do not want to over torque this stuff. There we go, done. Now we can just put our fairing back on. Kind of a pain to line a lot of this up, going up. And just kind of weaseling it around until it pops into place. All right, remember we pull these guys out before we put them in. Then we make sure this guy lines up and in. Pop that little rubber dammet, which is right here. You can feel it go in. Pull this guy out. Make sure everything's nicely lined up. Pop it in. Got this 4mm down here. And this 4mm back here. This one goes through multiple fairings, so it's a little annoying to line up perfectly. And there we go. So I think the only thing I would potentially do a little different here is maybe add the water pump one as well as these lines so that they don't get damaged in a crash. I think that would be the next thing I would do that would be important. After kind of looking at it, how it could hit the ground. Obviously we're gonna lose our exhaust first and then potentially hit our water pump before we even hit this. Maybe, maybe not. Depends on what it hits. So I think I will grab the water pump one. So if you're looking at buying these covers, I would maybe look at the water pump and maybe even these lines as well. I will buy those shortly and get those on. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope this is helpful, and I'll see you next week. Bye.